I'm going to be reading a book to you, okay?
Okay.
This is the book I'm reading. It's called When I Was Young in the Mountains. I'm going to have it pulled up here. Okay, this is our book. So the goal of this book is we're going to be learning about inferencing, okay? And this book is going to help teach us the strategy of inferencing through a book that shows words that we may not be familiar with, okay? So our I can statement is that I can make an inference using pictures and details in the book, okay? Make sense? That's our goal. By the end of that, that's what I want you to be able to do, is to look at other details to figure out words that we don't know. So what is an inference? This is our key. This is our strategy that we're learning. So an inference. On this side, I'm going to put what is it? So an inference is using what we have learned, so it can be the pictures, it can be the words and the details in our book to make guesses, educated guesses, or conclusions on what has happened or what will happen. So what is it? Is using details,
Evidence?
like evidence, to make conclusions on what has happened. Okay, so in my picture up here, the lady is saying, "Where did my coffee go?"
The kid drinking.
And how do you know the kid drank it?
He's crazy.
Because he's acting all hyper. So up here, nowhere does it say that the boy drank the coffee. But Adrian was able to infer that because she's looking for it, she can't find it, and he's acting all hyper and crazy, that he was the one who drank the coffee. So that's an example of an inference. So to make sure it's clear, what is it not? What is not an example of an inference? If I look at this picture and I said, the kid is crazy, that is not an inference, because all this does right here is just a fact we already know. Okay, so an inference in this example is only an inference because we're finding information we don't know. We can make the conclusion that he drank the coffee, but we don't know, right? It's a good guess based on our evidence, but we don't know. So stating a fact, like there's a couch in the background, she's missing her coffee, he's crazy, are not inference. Those are our details. Okay? So we can infer what the book will be about based off of this cover page. So if I look at this right here, it says, "When I was young in the mountains." And I can see that the author's name by Cynthia Rylant, that's a girl's name. And here I see a little girl and a little boy. And when someone says something like, "When I was young in the mountains," that's talking about the past. So I can infer that the author of this book is the little girl on the front cover. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Nowhere does it tell me that this is her. It doesn't have any arrows pointing. It doesn't say this is her. But I can infer that this is her past knowledge. This is her talking about when she was a kid and when she used to live in the mountains. Okay? Page 1. Alright, it says, "When I was young in the mountains, grandfather came home in the evening, covered with the black dust of a coal mine. Only his lips were clean, and he used them to kiss the top of my head." So here, another example of how I can make an inference on this page is that I can infer that their grandfather works in the coal mine. It doesn't say he works there, maybe he was just visiting, but I can see that maybe by his headgear that he has, or that the kids are smiling, that they're used to him coming home when he's all covered in the black dust, that I know he works there, and he's there more often than not, that he's there every day. So I can infer, even though it doesn't tell me. "When I was young in the mountains, grandmother spread the table with hot cornbread, pinto beans, and fried okra." I want you to pay attention to that word okra, if we don't know what that word means, okay?
You forgot to do the vision.
says, later, in the middle of the night, she walked through the grass with me to the Johnny house and held my hand in the dark. I promised never to eat more than one serving of okra again. So I'll pull this one up here. So there's a few things that I may not know on this page that I can make a difference about. There's words I haven't heard like Johnny house. I don't know what a Johnny house is, and I might not know what okra is. So does anyone have a guess as to what a Johnny house might be? Yes, Adrian.
I think it's a restroom.
It's a restroom. What do you think? Benny?
A house.
A house? A kind of house? Okay, so Adrian, what details would tell you that it would be a restroom?
You would not eat more anymore?
Mm-hmm. So here, the little girl, again, the author, she's saying in the middle of the night she had to wake up her grandma and she had to go to the Johnny house because she ate too much. So again, it doesn't say that this word means restroom, but we can see that this little house in the back that she's going to, she doesn't look very happy. We can tell that because she ate too much, those are all details that could help us infer that she's having to go to the bathroom, and that Johnny house is another word. Does anyone have any guesses of what okra could be if we know that?
What?
Okra, O-K-R-A, the word at the bottom. Do you have any guesses of what that could be? If she's saying she doesn't want to eat more than one serving of it, it's making her have to go to the bathroom late at night. Yes, Dad? It's food. It's a type of food. We may not know what kind of food, but it's a kind of food. Okay? So that's one thing to keep in mind. So we'll keep reading. Alright. When I was young in the mountains, we walked across the cow pasture and through the woods, carrying our towels. The swimming hole was dark and muddy, and we sometimes saw snakes, but we jumped in anyway. On our way home, we stopped at Mr. Crawford's for a mound of white butter. Mr. Crawford and Miss Crawford looked alike and always smelled of sweet milk. When I was young in the mountains, we pumped pails of water from the well at the bottom of the hill and heated the water to fill round tin tubs for our baths. Afterwards, we stood in front of the old black stove, shivering and giggling, while grandmother heated cocoa on top. When I was young in the mountains, we went to church in the schoolhouse on Sundays, and sometimes we walked with the congregation through the cow pasture to the dark swimming hole for baptisms. Okay, so here, there's a word, again, I might not know, the word congregation. Okay, this is a bigger word. So here I want you to turn and talk to a partner about, based on what's happening here, what do you think the word congregation could mean? So I'll give you a minute. Chance to talk to Adrian, Melissa, you talk to David, and I'll talk to David. Just based on the page, what do you think that the word congregation could mean? Mean what? They're talking? And what part of the page would tell you that? Yeah, they're in groups. That's a good idea. So if it says sometimes we walk with the congregation. So if we walk with them, it's like it's a noun, it's something we can, it's a thing. So if we walk, what are they walking with in the picture?
What? Apparently to
Other
walk,
people,
to
right?
feet?
So we can infer, it doesn't tell us that a congregation
Oh, walk for feet?
walk.
It's just feet them.
What do you think, Wilson? Either one.
I think it means a family.
Yeah, a family. Have you ever heard the word congregation before? No. Okay. What do you think it is, Genesis? Right. That's a good guess. So it says we walked with the congregation. In the picture here, they're walking, this is our author here, they're walking with all the people. So we use the word congregation when we're at church and we're the massive people that go to the church, that's the congregation. So, again, that's an example of inferencing, is that nowhere does it tell us what a congregation is, but you can see that because we walk with the congregation, we can see what are they walking with. We can look at our picture, we can look at our details, right, Danny? We can look at the details to infer what the word is, even though we might not know it. Okay. It says, my cousin Peter was laid back into the water, and his white shirt stuck to him, and my grandmother cried. That was him being baptized. It says, when I was young in the mountains, we listened to frogs sing at dusk, and awoke to cowbells outside our windows. Sometimes a black snake came in the yard, and my grandmother would threaten it with a hoe. If it did not leave, she used the hoe to kill it. 4 of us once draped a very long snake, dead of course, across our necks for a photograph. So here I want you just to think to yourselves, based on the picture and our details, what the word draped might mean. They said that 4 of us once draped a very long snake, dead of course, across our necks for a photograph. Yes, David?
Like help?
Like held, right? Danny?
To the picture, that was like holding.
Like holding it how? Just like holding it? Okay, Genesis. You wrapped it. So those were all good guesses. What made you think it was holding or putting it around your neck?
Like a necklace?
It could be like a necklace, but what made you think those things? Danny?
Because they said that they're gonna, what's the word again?
Draped
Draped it for autograph.
for the
So they
photograph?
get a picture.
So we can look at the picture, we can see, if I don't know what the word draped is, they said that they draped the snake over their neck. So I can look in the picture, how does the snake look? It looks like it's hanging down off their neck. So when you drape something, it kind of hangs down over. So again, that's just by looking at the picture. It doesn't explain what draped is. But all of those were right. That's ways that we can kind of hang it down. That's also how we find out a word, by looking at the picture. Okay. Now this is an important page.
I didn't notice the snake.
Yeah. Okay. It says, when I was young in the mountains, we sat on the porch swing in the evenings, and grandfather sharpened my pencils with his pocket knife. Grandmother sometimes shelled beans and sometimes braided my hair. The dogs lay around us, and the stars sparkled in the sky. A bobwhite whistled in the forest. Bob, bob, bobwhite. So I need each of you to get a half piece of paper. You can write on your desk, and I want you to pick something on this page, because there's a lot of details, that you are unfamiliar with, some word that you don't know, and we are going to make an inference as to what it might mean based on the details. Okay? So if you want to just get an expo out and we can write on the desk, that works. Or a sheet of paper, and I'm going to help us start our sentence. I'm going to help give you a sentence starter. You got a marker? infer that draped means hung down because the picture of the snake. Okay? And that's what I want your sentence to be. So you can pick one thing in here that might be confusing, like when it says grandmother shelled beans. You don't know what shelled means. If you don't know what maybe a bob white means. Maybe if you've never heard of a pocket knife.
Scissors.
Yes.
So, quickly here.
So first you pick a word on the page, or part of the picture that you don't know. So one word you pick. One that confuses you, one that just you haven't heard of.
I forgot.
Okay, well, I'll maybe work through it. Has anyone heard of what a bob white is?
No.
Neither have I. So we can use that one. We can write bob white. So looking at our picture, and the last sentence is that the bob white whistled in the forest. What do we think that a bob white is? Do we think it's,
Whistle.
yes, think
Like a type of cat.
a type of cat maybe? Okay,
The animal?
an animal. I would agree. Why would you think that it's an animal? What tells you in the sentence here?
That in the forest?
In the forest, right?
Yeah.
Right? We wouldn't find a car in the forest. We wouldn't find a train whistle in the forest. We wouldn't find other people. We call bob whites, so we can say that a bob white means
Animals.
maybe an animal. Because why? Because why do we think it's an animal?
Because how a whistle in the forest?
Because it whistled from the forest? You're saying, David?
Like a wolf. Yeah, because they said it was in the forest.
Because it came from the forest? Yeah. We could say because we heard it from the forest. Okay, so do we see that we can make this nice big sentence with details and answers on what it is, but because, so we can make this about a word that we didn't even know, right? No one knew what bob white was, but we can infer based on details in the text, based on pictures, we can make an inference as to what it means. And that helps us reading higher level books and books that have topics we might not know about. So on the last page, it says, when I was young in the mountains, I never wanted to go to the ocean, and I never wanted to go to the desert. I never wanted to go anywhere else in the world, for I was in the mountains, and that was always enough. So would you say that this girl, that now is the author that wrote the book, would you say that she enjoyed and had a positive experience in the mountains, or that she had a negative experience in the mountains?
Experience.
Which kind of experience?
Good experience.
A good experience. Why?
Because she was having fun in the deep pool.
Yeah, she was having fun in the pool. Was there any times that she was like sad or left out in the mountains? No. But did it say anywhere in the book that she was happy?
Yes, I know. Didn't
No, it didn't write it out to say I was happy in the mountains. But we can infer based on her experiences that she was having a good time in the mountains. Okay? So again, let's strategy we learned today is inferencing, which is making educated guesses or coming to conclusions, like here, the conclusion that a bobwhite is an animal, based on evidence and details that we find in our book. And that is important because as we read new books that are harder and higher level reading, those words that we don't know, that we can't think of, and are unfamiliar to us, we can figure out using the context and the details in our books. And that is all. That's inferencing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your attention, for your time.
A glass.
You don't have to